So I was having lunch at Beck's on the Hill a while back with a buddy of mine, and he was giving me all the reasons he didn't want to come to church. And after a little bit, it became pretty obvious. He's mad at the church. He's seen too many people who went to church but acted like jerks. He turned on the TV too many times on a Sunday morning and seen the pearly white smiles and the fake hairdos. He was sick of it, and it made him mad. He's a buddy of mine, but he was really mad at the church. And honestly, I understood. I remember when I was in college, and it was before I became a Christ follower, and we went to church, when I was a kid and stuff, and in high school, and went back home for the summer. I went to the bar with my friends, and there, sitting in the corner booth, was the usher at the church that we went to, drunk as a skunk. And I can remember thinking, man, I don't want nothing to do with the church if it's filled with people like that. I remember when Kay and I were dating in college in Sioux Falls, and I was a pretty new Christian. And we went to this church, and it wasn't that big of a church, but we'd walk in every Sunday, and the pastor would shake my hand. He'd look at me and say, "Now, what's your name again?" He really didn't care. Kind of ticked me off. I can remember in seminary, and we'd have to go to churches, and sometimes it'd be on a Sunday to worship, or sometimes just to go to evaluate or go to look to learn something. And we'd walk in, and invariably, it'd just make me mad because good enough would be good enough. Light bulbs were out, floors were dirty, misspellings in the bulletin. It was kind of like, this is the greatest message on earth, and yet good enough is good enough. I've seen people so wounded by their churches. I'd like to have a little heart-to-heart with those leaders, if you know what I mean. Leaders that excuse abuse and sin and say it's really not that big of a deal. I've seen people whose entire lives have been arrested because of a church that wanted to keep people under their thumb. So they created all kinds of legalism to keep people in line. That makes me mad. I've seen people who can't find freedom from their addictions because the church refuses to deal with the messiness that comes with life. It makes me mad. And I've seen people who were so racked with guilt and shame because the church has hammered them from day one, telling them how bad they are and how worthless they are. It ticks me off. I've just about seen it all and heard it all when it comes to people being mad at church, and I get it because I've been there at times too. So I'm thinking about this buddy of mine sitting across the table from him. I want him to know I get it, and we get it. And sometimes the church is wrong. And sometimes we do mess it up. But I don't want him to be stalled, and I don't want you to be stalled. So we're not afraid of this. We're not afraid of people who are mad at the church, but we want you to move and take steps and be free.